All right, everyone, welcome back and bear down. I've got a sickness. I've got a disease. I am plain out, flat, simple, just infected with this draft. I don't know when the Bears are ever going to have this much draft capital at the top of the draft. It's freaking exciting, and I know you guys feel the same way. So we're going to get off of the top of talk of taking a different quarterback. We're going to let go the J.J. McCarthy, the Jaden Daniels, Drake May talk for just a little bit, because there's a real opportunity here at 9 that I don't think is being explored enough. So that's what this video is going to be. Thanks for tuning in. Let's check out what could really happen at 9 and how there still is a scenario where we can do a double trade down or we can exact some value out of a team at number 9, similar to when the Bears came up in 2021 from number 20 to number 11. All right, so to look at that to start with, in 2021, the Bears traded up from 20 to number 11. They gave up a future first and fourth and their first and fifth rounder that year. That was on the Rich Hill trade value chart, 358 versus 615. Sometimes when that happens, it happens when you're going after a quarterback, a high value player that you don't want anybody else to steal, so you overvalue it and you trade up to get the haul. The Giants got the haul in this scenario. They got 2 firsts out of it, a swap of a first and a future first, and a fourth and a fifth out of it. That's a lot of value from 20 to 11. That's a similar situation as this year. The reason being because there's really 4 quarterbacks right now that have separated themselves. And if one of those teams like the Giants, who I don't expect to be taking quarterback, I'm not on the mainstream on this one. I really think they need a wide receiver. And with their current contract situation with Daniel Jones, I don't see it as being one they're going to bail on this year. Maybe they'll take a quarterback later in the draft. Maybe if someone falls into their lap they weren't expecting, maybe if Drake May's there and they really like Drake May, they would take him there at 6. It's going to be interesting to see what the Giants do there. Is New England going to trade back with Minnesota? Are they going to take a quarterback right there? Because New England has so many holes to fill. They're like the Bears from a couple years ago when we drafted Justin Fields, but weren't really ready to establish and be there for him. New England's in just the same type of train wreck. A quarterback that goes there is in trouble. But you've got clear-cut Caleb Williams, number 1, Jaden Daniels, number 2, Drake May and J.J. McCarthy, 3 and 4. Most analysts now are predicting all of them to be in the top 10. So if one of them doesn't go in the top 10, that's a prime position at 9 for the Bears ahead of Minnesota, Denver, and the Raiders for one of them to overpay and to come up to 9 to jump the other ones, especially the Raiders, who are behind 2 other teams. Maybe the Broncos are fine sitting pat with Bo Nix there at 12. Maybe they've got their own idea of what they're going to do somewhere in that mix. But the reality is 9 holds a lot of value with where these could fall. Now, if someone already jumps ahead of the Bears, that falls into the scenario we were talking about where you just take someone at 9. You take Joe Alt or Rome Odunze because they fell into your lap because people were jumping up and getting ahead of you. That could very well happen. But let's say only 3 of these guys go, and there's teams wanting to fight for, say it's Drake May, say it's J.J. McCarthy. One of these guys hasn't gone by 9. The Bears are in a prime position. All right, so here's kind of the consensus big board. I put a little highlight right there by Caleb Williams because at this point, we're just going to assume the Bears are taking him. Now, I'm not saying that's guaranteed going to happen. You guys know how I feel about it. On draft night, we'll see what happens. Anything could ever happen. But here we are, and look at all the people that we could take in the top 20 and really have them be day 1 starters. We have a need for wide receiver. Quarterback, we're taking. We have a need for wide receiver, tackle, and edge. They've made that clear. Ryan Poles talked about how they'll break into pods. Well, what if when they get into these pods, they like so many of these players and they're okay with so many of these players that they say, yeah, we can trade back because all of these guys fit the scenario. Now, I'm not saying that's how this works. I'm just saying, what if they're comfortable trading back for a haul? So I know this is a little jumbled, but this is kind of highlighted where some of these players for the Bears have needs. Look at how many we could take and still be comfortable taking them and getting a haul. So the green ones are the offensive linemen. The blue ones are the quarterbacks. Wide receivers are highlighted in orange. Defensive linemen highlighted in yellow. We're not going to take a cornerback, guys. It's just not going to happen. I didn't highlight Amarius Mims. I probably should have. Troy Fontenot. I don't see us getting a tackle that late back. Ryan Poles talked about depth. So if we don't get Joe Alt, with that green one. Maybe we take Fuaga, maybe we take Fashanu, maybe we take Latham. Really, I don't know. But look at how many guys are highlighted, over 20. So we definitely could trade back and still get a blue chip guy that's someone that fits our needs. Then look at the second round. This is why we can trade back. Look at all the players here that also fit our needs. I'm not going to highlight them, but you can see the Zach Fraziers, maybe Ladd McConkey, maybe T'Vondre Sweat, maybe Chris Jenkins, Xavier Legette, Roman Wilson. I mean, there's so many wide receivers in this class. Maybe Patrick Paul. I mean, there's just so many options. Darius Robinson, Jordan Morgan, Graham Barton even. There's so many options. If the Bears trade back, there's players there. So what could it look like? Well, let's use our scenario and say the Raiders will really want to trade up. Even less value than what the Bears had to give up to go to the Giants. For the same scenario, needing to trade up for a quarterback, say the Raiders really, really want to get up there and take Drake May or J.J. McCarthy if they're not gone by 9. We don't know how the draft is going to play out, guys. We don't. Every year something changes and happens. All right, let's say this happens. The Raiders give up 13, 44, and a future second. It's not that much. It's not crazy. It's not really out there, but it is an overpay, and it really is a haul from going to 13 to 9. Well, what could that look like? I'm not going to drag out a long mock draft video, but this is what it could look like. All of a sudden, we got Caleb Williams, Brian Thomas Jr., Zach Frazier with that extra pick, still got our tackle, Kieran Abenjagi, and Mason Smith at 122. And we didn't get our edge. I get that, but we could still pick one up in free agency, and we do have a decent edge class now. But could we still trade down for a haul from 13 with this many players that fit the needs that we might have? Maybe we're comfortable with a couple of these edges like Chop Robinson and Leatu Latu, who a lot think might not go as high as they thought. Maybe one of those edges fall. Maybe we want Jackson Powers Johnson. Maybe he falls there. Well, what could it look like if we trade down again? Well, the second trade down wouldn't have as much value. You're going to start hitting this range where people aren't trading up for quarterbacks, and it's really pretty straight across trade value at this point. But to go from 13 to 19 and still be in that range where we're getting quality players, high caliber players, blue chip players here at the top of this draft, we could then trade a second time, do the double trade down, and get 19, 83, and 154. Pretty straight value. Maybe even we get a little kicker of a future fourth-round pick. Who knows? I'm just giving a hypothetical here. What would that look like? Well, this is still the haul to me. This would be pretty cool to see the Bears pull off. Still get Caleb. We get Chop Robinson, Zach Frazier, Kieran Abenjagi, Cade Stover, Mason Smith, and Elijah Jones. We didn't get our wide receiver in this class, but there's still some options out there. We could still sign a Hunter Renfrow. I don't love it. I know. I've talked about this wide receiver class. So maybe instead of Zach Frazier at 44, we're taking Xavier Legette. And then next year we can focus on a center. Or we can take Xavier Legette at 44 and hope that we can get the whole Connor Williams things to work out when he gets back and healthy. We can sign him to a team-friendly contract this year, which is within our salary cap, and get a long-term extension with him, say a 4 or 5 year contract with $6 million for the first year and $13 million each year after that. Man, that solves everything. In fact, I like this one a lot more. Let's go with this one instead. This is the haul. Caleb Williams 1, trading down twice from 9 to 20, getting Chop Robinson, Xavier Legette, Kieran Abenjagi, Cade Stover, Mason Smith, and Elijah Jones. Guys, we just hit everything there. Quarterback, wide receiver, defensive end, offensive tackle, tight end, defensive tackle, and a cornerback, who Elijah Jones, if you don't know, is coming in for a top 30 visit, and Poles and Eberflus love their defensive backs. They love them. So there are possibilities. There's so much to be excited for in this draft. There is so many possibilities that could happen. So can the Bears trade down from 9 and still get the haul? Absolutely. This is why trading down from number 9 makes a lot of sense. There's so many players at the top of this draft, and we don't have all the draft capital. This is absolutely something that Ryan Poles could do in Ryan Poles fashion to extract some more value for the Bears. Hope you guys are having a great day. Let me know your thoughts in the comment. Let me know players that you're liking. There's some players we can look into. I'm going to start looking into individual players, doing some highlights on them as we get close to the draft. But hope you have a good rest of your day. And until next time, as always, bear down.